Episode 64. Will these comics make good film and television shows? We got Red Sonja, we got classic Fantastic Four, and we got Ruxy the Vampire. Let's check it out right now. Thanks everybody, welcome back to the channel. I really appreciate you spending your time watching me tirade about these comics and films, etc. from previous things we've done on the channel. But today we're going to be talking about some Independence and Marvel and a whole bunch of other stuff. But before we do, remember to give me a like and subscribe if you can. We are trying to build a channel out. I am Frank Zanca, your host. I'm an award-winning screenwriter, novelist, and comic book writer. And if we're going to talk about comics, we got to talk about the fact that we just launched Late Pledge for Lords of LA, my vampire mob in the 1950s Hollywood with guest star Marilyn Monroe, etc. It's a vampire revenge story, so we have vampire and vampire action, as well as the mob with Tommy guns, etc. It's lots of fun. So we just launched Late Pledge on that on Indiegogo. The link is in the description below. So definitely check that out if you can. And if you can support it in some way, I greatly appreciate it. So yeah, I'm just looking to get the last couple of 10 pages left or so. And I would love to get help on financing some of that. But it's going to get done either way. But it would be nice to get a little bit of help on that. All right, so let's jump into a Red Sonja. I'm going to do these a little bit out of order. Normally I do DC, Marvel, and then Independence, but considering 2 out of 3 of them are Independence and we have a Fantastic Four, that's kind of a special. We're going to do that a little bit out of order. All right, so let's do a Red Sonja. So this is number 7. It's by Dynamite Comics and Thorin Grunbeck. Who is female. You would think with a name like Thorin that it would be a guy, but it's not. So the previous issues had to do with Cool Goth. Kind of, he was like jumping between bodies, but he finally came out through a portal, so now he's back in the real world after being killed. But because he is kind of a supernatural being, he kind of existed in limbo there for a little bit. So he has a little army of dudes that are, he kind of coaxes them into attacking a castle. And, you know, there he is. He's not too happy with the size of his army. But he kind of builds them up in, rallying the troops kind of situation. Then we switch over to Red Sonja, who is in a nunnery, but is none too happy to, make the nuns uncomfortable with what's going on. So, she's scantily clad, etc., basically making a mockery of the situation. But I guess there's a monster in the woods that's causing all kinds of havoc, and they're like, well, we thought we brought you here to change you, but maybe we need you the way you are, and we need you to go into the woods and deal with whatever's going on in there. And she's like, yeah, okay. And I think the artwork is pretty good. I love the way they draw her face in this book, because some of the previous Red Sonja stuff, the artwork wasn't that great. But anyway, when she gets there, we find a girl fighting some of these guys off, and she literally leaps off the horse and joins the fight. And she says, "Don't kill him," because everybody's just kind of scared. But my little sister, they took her into the woods to sacrifice her to whatever monster's in there, and I can't allow that, so I need to go in there and grab her. So that's what they do. They go in and they find the little girl, basically getting tied up by this thing. But you can see the things lurking in the woods, so there is definitely something there. But then we switch back over to Cool and Goth, and everybody is, celebrating their victory, etc. And when actually we got one guy that's like, why are we following this old guy? We can do this on our own. And Cool and Goth is like, oh, really? how about I just melt you? He looks pretty melted. Everybody's like, oh my god, that's disgusting. So then we switch back over to the little girl. And they're like, no, we have to sacrifice her because this thing is destroying us, etc. And she's like, well, not today. And then when they try to get out, they are surrounded by these little creatures that have skull faces and stuff like that. And the guy still tries to sacrifice the girl, and he gets smacked. So Sonja smacks his ass, and he gets chewed up to pieces. And then the big baddie comes out, Big Daddy Monster, and they're like, I think it's time to run now. I love when the hero runs, because that means that we have a villain that is too strong for them to handle. And I really like that. So Cool Goth gets all creepy and takes on a little boy apprentice. And when they get to the rocks, so it goes back and forth between the two stories. When they get past the rocks, they suddenly stop. And Big Daddy Monster comes up with the head of the dude that he just killed. And he literally just slinks back into the mist. And that's the end of that. And I'm liking this a lot. I think this is a good follow-up to the previous story, even though the last story did finish up. But now we're getting the continuation with what happened to Cool Goth and what happened to Sonja, because after she was beat up. And now we have them both kind of on their own track that we know that they're eventually going to meld together, but meanwhile she's on a side mission. So yeah, I like this a lot. I think Thorin Grunbeck's doing a good job with this story, or with this character, and she's sticking to the character and not going off the rails, which I really appreciate too. So would it make a good film and television show? So far, yeah, I love the Cool Goth character. I think especially when he was bouncing around and she thought that he was like fairy godmother kind of thing going on. But yeah, it was. I like a lot of that, what she's doing. So I'd love to see a new Red Sonja movie without them changing her for a modern audience. Would be awesome. All right, so then I picked up this one, and this is not a reprint. This is a real book. This is from, I believe it's 1978. You can see that it's 60 cents. It is number 200, so it's a double-size issue. And anytime that we have Mr. Fantastic versus Dr. Doom, I'm in. I am in. So this was really good, except, it kind of jumps the rails a few times. So I guess I missed whatever happened previously, of course, because this book was, $15. So it's a little bit beat up. Oh, and I had this, by the way, the Spider-Man that had the grappling hook on him and had the motor in it. I actually had that. But anyway, so, Dr. Doom he's got his own thing going on, but I guess his clone or whatever else died, and it kind of drove him over the edge. He's like, I have to bury myself. I see myself die, so he's kind of going a little crazy. But I love the art in here. I mean, that's classic Dr. Doom. It's classic Fantastic Four that I grew up with. If you're gonna compare it to Kirby stuff, this is like second. Look how Mr. Fantastic is drawn there. I think it's just all really good. So Doom is, I guess there's some kind of an election going on that's going to oust Doom, and he's dealing with that back in Latveria, but at the same time, he's got his own nefarious things going on that he wants to invade New York. Not necessarily New York, but the UN in New York. And, when they stand up to him, he just, turns something on, has them all flying all over the place. And meanwhile, his henchmen are taking a statue, which is what they're going to take to the UN. So we get, and this is where it kind of jumps, some of this jumps the shark, and this guy with the one eye is the one that supposedly get elected to be the new king of Latveria. So I would have liked to have seen a little bit. We have, of course, the ads everywhere that we don't see anymore. Comics would be cheaper if they had ads in them. I'm just saying. And then, okay, that's Alicia. So they find Alicia because they also yell at each other a lot. They call each other stupid and stuff like that. But then they apologize to one another because, you know, he was trying to find Alicia. And they're like, well, we need to finish this and with Doom and stuff like that. But, and I've really never seen them kiss before. But there you go. I don't know how she kisses Rock, but she must be fixing her teeth a lot. Ow, man, you hit my teeth. But anyway, so we have them in the jet, okay, and all four of them are in the jet with glass all the way across. But then Johnny jumps out, so it ricochets up ejects one of the windows, right? But the other two windows are still intact. Okay, so keep that in mind. But anyway, we have heat-seeking missiles that Doom fired, and of course, you know, Johnny being him, he jumped out to attract the heat-seeking missiles, but he does Nova Blast, which knocks him out. But remember, Sue's never, the glass is still on top of her, right? She never ejected the cockpit glass, but yet she was able to put him in. And with all the ejected glass, I don't know how the plane's even flying anymore. Then we get this cool shot. So yeah, there's a couple of things in here that I can nitpick, but I'm gonna nitpick something else. But I love that scene with Doom and Reed there. And of course, you know, he blames him for his experiment that went wrong and ruined his face and all that stuff. And you know, we get this cool shot of Dr. Doom. I really love that. And it's too bad that they've already ruined the Fantastic Four with their casting. But, you know, Disney Marvel is Disney Marvel, and Disney Star Wars is Disney Star Wars, and I guess it doesn't have to match the comics anymore, which is why nobody loves it anymore. Because if there was only one great Fantastic Four movie, and it was called The Incredibles. But anyway, he puts Reed into this kill room, and he's got to hold himself up with the fire spreading below them, and Doom is just like, all right, I'm out of here. Die at your own pace. And there's the statue that the guys bring into the UN, and they're like, what are you doing with this big statue? Now, how they brought guns and everything else into the UN, I will never know. Plus, we got a Dr. Doom sweepstakes. They used to have all this cool shit in comics that they don't have anymore. So, here's the other part I got to nitpick. So, he's there about to get, fried, and he puts his head into the tube, right, that's spraying the stuff out. And then he, puts his whole body into it. I don't think that's how his powers work, because if you can make your head this tiny, where's your brain going? How are you even thinking anymore? So, yeah, I don't think that's how it's supposed to work. I'm not buying that. And then we get the Thor, with the Twinkie cakes or whatever. Oh, that's funny stuff, man. See, we don't even get these kind of backgrounds in comics anymore. Look at that with that machine that's up there. And Doom is he's like, oh, you're still here? And he shorts out Doom's armor. And Doom is not happy about that. But he can still fight and everything like that. It's not like Tony's suit where it just kind of stops moving. He still can maneuver it. He just doesn't have some of his weaponry. So meanwhile, the thing is going. The thing also, but the statue is mind controlling all the UN people. But Doom is unable to really do anything about it because he's fighting Reed. So, and he's like, look at the face on Doom. He's like, yeah, it's working, but he can't really do anything about it because he keeps having to fight Mr. Fantastic. So the Thing and Johnny and Sue are all having to fight all the guys in the UN that are now attacking them. And this is another nitpick I'm going to do. Look at that, even the Micronauts. Remember the Micronauts? Oof. That was some cool-ass toys back in the day. They don't really have that stuff anymore. But Doom is continuing to kick his ass. And then he tries to strangle him, right? So he's strangling him, but literally 5 pages earlier, he was able to make his head into a pin. So how do you strangle a guy like that? You don't. So it's got inconsistencies. That's right. And he pulls Doom's mask off. So I thought that was kind of cool. And so Doom is not happy at this point. But then this is the weird part too. I guess he has some kind of a lenses in his head or whatever else that without the mask it just becomes like a spider's eye. So he's seeing reflections of himself all over the place, and it basically drives him mad. So meanwhile, all the guys at the UN had all these weapons. Look at that. They had guns. They had to get those to security. And they were beating up, the Fantastic Four with all these weapons. So, there's like 3 or 4 things I'm like, what? Really? But, I discount some of that stuff because there is some really cool stuff in here. But, Doom is gone now, so the guy does get elected. And, they have this poignant moment of the statue kind of dissipating. And Doom's in prison. So, yeah. Good stuff. Really good stuff, except for my little nitpicks. So the script needed like one more pass, and then I think it would have been good. But overall, it was good. It could have been great. But instead, it was just good. So, would this make a good film? Yes, absolutely. I love having Reed and Mr. Fantastic battling by themselves while the other ones, the rest of the group, is doing another mission, especially when it's Doom versus Reed. That's good stuff, man. That is good stuff. And they're all insulting one another. You dolt! Oh, classic comics from the 70s. I'm so glad I bought it, though. It was a slow week, so I figured I'd pick it up. Then I got one in from Kickstarter. This is Ruxy Vampire. So I had my vampire mob in the 50s, and this one is in 1926. So this one is, they take a little bit, I don't think the artwork's here is as good as mine either, but they take a little bit of liberty with how the vampires work. I went a little bit more traditional with the reflections and all that stuff, and then having to be in coffins. I went very, very traditional with it, where this is not. And the artwork here is, the coloring is good, the pencils are not. And I'm going to show you in a second. But anyway, so we start out with this hit that's going on. Remember, this is 1926. So this is right around World War I and Prohibition. And so the guy that owns that gets killed, and the girl runs into the room to not get shot. She's like, I know Joey, so, I'm kind of protected and all this other stuff. But meanwhile, we jump to this statue, and look at the hats. This is why I say the pencils are not good. Is that really a fedora on his head, or is he going fishing? It doesn't look like it's even on his head. I don't know what that is. Why does he even have a brim? That's why I'm saying the artwork is, and the faces aren't very good. It's very kind of almost like an anime kind of face. Yeah, so I don't really like the art. I like the coloring. But anyway, going back to the statue, I guess when they go out into the sun, they don't die, they become statues. So this is a brother and sister, And that embrace does not look like a brother and sister, but that's what it is. And when the blood gets on them, they rejuvenate, so they're no longer statues. So they go then attack the guys because they need to fill up. And meanwhile, the girl is, preparing for these guys to try to shoot her. So she's got, she's loaded for bear and everything else that's going on. Meanwhile, they're getting killed in the other room by the vampire. And then, of course, they eventually attack her. And, of course, there is nudity in here and stuff like that. So, yeah. So now they're in 1926, right? And the girl they killed was a nurse. So we find out that here, that she was a nurse. And they're drinking alcohol, but they find out that, we find out that, again, he's kind of deviating from regular vampires where they're drinking. They can eat, they can drink normal stuff. As long as their blood level is full, they can act like a human. So anyway, they look around the apartment and they find out what year it is, and they realize that they've been in stone for 40 years, okay? So keep that in mind. So it's 1926. That means that in 1880-something, they were turned into stone, okay? In 1880s, the cars looked like carriages. Okay, they had levers and stuff like that. There was no steering wheel and stuff to that effect. They basically were carriages. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Because he did do, which I appreciate, he did do research on the language, but apparently he didn't do any research about cars, because she would not be able to drive that car 40 years later. They should have just made it 10, 15 years later. Then I would have bought it. But we didn't. But I guess, and then we find out that she has a gambling problem with horses. So she gambles away all their money after a period of time. And now they couldn't even pay their rent or whatever else at the house that they stole living in. So the bookies send these monsters after them. We have a cat, a fox with 9 tails, and some kind of a hyena creature. And she then fights. They have this big fight scene because they want their money, and she doesn't have it. Blah blah blah. She kills the hyena, and she's looking around for her brother. And her brother decides to have sex with the woman that was going to kill him. And this is just like, come on, man. So they have no car now because they had to give the car up to pay the bookie. And she gets hit on by this gangster. Now, why the gangster is in the subway, I'll never know. But she rips the guy apart, and I guess there's no cops or anything at this point. But anyway, Frank Needy comes up, who's a real person, and offers her a job, which we really don't find out if she's going to take, because she gets on the phone, and you find out it's Valentine's Day, which the Valentine's Day massacre. I don't know if they were kind of alluding to that in here. But I guess she calls up Frank Needy, and I guess goes to see him, and she beats up some other people, blah, 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 and they go into this back room where there's a party going on, and I guess this other guy is trying to get some kind of an artifact from this other woman that has like an Egyptian eye, and we find out that he's some kind of a demon that comes out, but we only see the shadow. And I think that's just about it. Oh yeah, so we find out that the demon is actually this one-eyed woman here, and that's all we find out. And then we get this vernacular thing, which I think was kind of cool. He put up all the words that they used to say back in the day. So I think there's something here, but it needs fixing up because it's kind of all over the place, and there is a story here. I just don't know what it is yet. Like, we don't get a clear idea what the story is after 40 pages, which is a good-sized book. Mine's 48, so 40 pages is decent. But we don't ever find out what the story even is about. So, I don't know. I'm going to say maybe, because it's got some good stuff in it, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Fantastic Four would love to see a Doom versus Richards thing. That would be awesome. And liking where Red Sonja's going, even for this new storyline. So yeah, good work, everybody. All right, that's it for me, and thank you so much for watching. And remember that Lords of LA is up on Indiegogo right now for late pledge. We will be retiring some of the cover art, so you won't be able to get some of these covers in the future. In fact, you probably won't be able to get most of any of them because we're going to be combining them into a graphic novel, into a 90-page graphic novel. So most of the covers will get retired. So anyway, if you want to do that, the link is in the description below, or you can go to Indiegogo and type in Lords of LA. And any support you can give would be greatly appreciated. The books are not that expensive anyway. All right, so thank you again so much for watching. And remember, too, that Mark Spears and I are working on our classic Monsters card game. So if you guys are gamers out there or just like card games or just like classic Monsters, we will be launching that in a few months. And in fact, I'm trying to get everything prepared to send to China right now so that I can get my sample copies over to reviewers. All right, thanks again, guys. Have a great week. And check out some other videos as well. Like and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, why the hell not? And I'll see you guys on the next one. All right, bye-bye.